My name's Grace Sandler, Rear Admiral, U.S. Navy. If that sounds impressive, don't be too quick to clap. In my family, it didn't even earn me a seat at my own sister's promotion ceremony. It started at 9:30 sharp. The parking lot outside Naval Station Stone Mill was already half whole. Uniforms, suits, and a few family members looking like they came straight from a golf course brunch. I had on my service dress, white. My ribbons were in perfect alignment. My name tag? Shiny enough to blind a drone. Still, none of that mattered at the gate. The young petty officer looked up from his clipboard. "Ma'am, I'm not finding your name on the guest list. Could you step to the side?" I held my ID out anyway. "Rear Admiral Grace Sandler. I'm here for Lieutenant Commander Olivia Sandler's ceremony." He scanned it, hesitated, then gave me that tight Navy smile. "This isn't my fault, ma'am, but good luck anyway." "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll need to confirm with the event organizer." Behind him, people in line were starting to stare, some whispering. One woman tilted her head like I was a lost dog. From the corner of my eye, I saw them, my parents. Richard and Lorraine Sandler. Navy pedigree, starched like linen, and standing right there. They weren't 10 feet away. They saw the holdup. They saw me. And they didn't move. Then Olivia stepped into view. Perfect hair, perfect posture. Her uniform looked fresh out of a catalog. Public affairs officer through and through. She walked up like this was a PR shoot. "Oh, you weren't on the list?" she asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Weird. Maybe they assumed people in intelligence wouldn't show up in daylight. I didn't flinch, just nodded. "Congrats on the promotion." She leaned in slightly. "Try not to make it weird today, please." I didn't answer. The gate officer cleared his throat again. "Ma'am, do you have someone inside who can vouch?" "It's fine," I said, stepping back. "I'll wait." There was a small grassy area off to the side of the checkpoint. I stood there, not in, not out. I just observed. 2 more SUVs passed through. Someone honked and waved at Olivia. She waved back like a homecoming queen. Let's pause right there. This question mark. This is the moment people like to call a turning point. But in my case, it wasn't dramatic. No thunder, no swelling music. One thing happened. I decided I wouldn't swallow anything further. Do me a favor if you've made it this far. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Have you ever shown up to something you weren't even invited to, but still had every right to be there? I read all of them. Really. Anyway. Back to the gate. Eventually, the officer got word that I'd been added manually to the list. Excellent how fast admin can work when an admiral starts drawing attention. He waved me through, a bit red in the face. Inside the venue, banners hung across the front. Leadership, legacy, loyalty. Someone had gone full PowerPoint with the theme. Photo slideshows were running on a loop. Olivia in uniform, Olivia shaking hands, Olivia doing push-ups. Somewhere in the back, a montage of her giving a press interview played without sound. I stood near the back. No family row seat for me. The front was full. Mom, Dad, 2 family friends from church, and a former CEO who once told me I should smile more. The MC started his welcome speech. I caught my mother whispering to someone, pointing toward Olivia with pride. Her hand didn't even twitch in my direction. The room applauded when Olivia was called up like she'd cured a disease. She looked radiant. She deserved to. She worked hard. But it still hit me like shrapnel that nobody here knew she was on that Somalia supply ship 6 months ago. And even if they did, they sure didn't know who pulled her out of danger. That's the thing about being intelligent. You save people and then you shut up about it. No medals, no press, no podium. That was fine for years until it wasn't. Standing in the back, invisible to everyone I shared DNA with, I realized I didn't need to speak loudly to be heard. But it's time someone listens. So I stayed. I stayed for every second of her applause. I stayed for the photo ops, the awkward buffet, and the recycled congratulations. And I stayed for what came next. Because if I was going to remind this family who I am, I wasn't going to start by knocking on the door. I was going to come through the command center. I didn't sit down at the ceremony. I left before the cake. The drive back felt like ghosts were escorting me. Not the dramatic kind, just the familiar ones that never quite shut up. You don't outgrow them. You just learn to keep the radio louder than your thoughts. My apartment was dark and clean. I didn't turn on the lights. I hung the uniform, unpinned the ribbons, and stood in front of the mirror. I looked like someone important. I didn't feel like anyone at all. People assume silence means strength. Sometimes it's just fatigue. I opened the top drawer of my desk and pulled out a thin, dusty envelope. Inside, a certificate. First place, National Strategic Innovation Challenge, dated 22 years ago. I was 17. I'd built a simulation model for naval logistics under attack. It beat out all the Ivy League ROTC hopefuls. I came home thinking Dad would say something proud. He glanced at it and said, "Not bad. Olivia got accepted into Annapolis today. Mom cooked steak that night. Not for me. I didn't cry then. I didn't cry now either. But I did feel something tighten in my stomach. The same way it always did when I heard the word fair. It wasn't that they hated me. They just didn't see me. I remember the last time I was invited to anything that wasn't military mandated. Last year, maybe the 4th of July. No, scratch that. I had an active operation briefing. They never asked what I did. They assumed it was computers, paperwork, desk stuff. Analysis, they'd say, with that polite, slight head tilt. Like they were trying to remember which cousin sells insurance. When Olivia got her first deployment, Dad threw a backyard BBQ with a flat cake. When I got mine, he emailed, "Be careful. Let us know if you need anything." That was it. No cake. Olivia was built for applause. Great skin. Charisma. It looks like she ordered it from Amazon Prime. Public affairs officer made perfect sense. She could spin fog into gold and sell it to the Navy as a motivational speech. And Mom loved that about her. People gravitate to Liv. She makes them feel seen. Yeah, I'd noticed. The first time Olivia got a Navy Times feature, Dad printed and framed it. Hung it in the hallway, right next to his commission photo. There's no photo of me in that house. Well, there is one, in the guest bathroom. Small frame, senior prom, side profile. I wasn't even looking at the camera. They used to say I was different. Bookish, reserved, mature for my age, which is adult speak for not fun at parties. Olivia was the light. I was the socket. So I did what you do when you grow up with that arrangement. You shrink yourself small enough to survive. You get out. You join something bigger than family. Something that values what you bring, not how photogenic you are. And then eventually, you get good at being invisible. The kind of good that earns clearance levels most people can't pronounce. I walked over to the closet and opened the top shelf storage box. I found my original commissioning photo under the spare boots and locked case files. The only printed one I kept. Stiff smile. Silver bar on the collar. Eyes like I hadn't learned disappointment yet. I taped it to the fridge. Not for anyone else, just for me. Then I opened my laptop. There were 5 new messages from DC Intel traffic. 1 flagged from command. I clicked it open. Mission notes, short but urgent. Another situation is developing off the coast of West Africa. Coordination is required at Trident HQ by 0700. Perfect. The uniform is back on. ID badge reattached. No time for reflections, literally or otherwise. There are people out there who think they know power because they wear it on their chests. Me? I wear it in my silence. And I make sure the right people stay alive. No one needs to clap for that. I reported in at 0645 and didn't bother with coffee. The underground hallway to the tank always smelled like chilled air and nervous metal. Lights never flickered. No noise, but boots. 1 ID check and 2 retina scans. And I was in. Doors seal behind you here like they don't plan on letting you back out. Inside, the operation board was already alive. Satellite feeds, red dot activity, and 3 screens showing the same flashing grid off the Horn of Africa. Our logistics vessel, the USNS Clearwell, had gone dark during a scheduled route for 23 minutes. They'd pinged back in, late, spooked, and rattling out a partial distress call. The room wasn't panicking, but it was leaning forward. Lieutenant Mason, my intel lead, held a data tablet. Signal dropped near AO Delta, Grace. No weather disruptions. Last known location here. He pointed. They were hauling medical supplies and personnel. Non-combat. Personnel? 22 on manifest. I didn't ask for names. I knew the number. Knew what kind of assignments these were. Quiet ones. Usually full of junior officers needing deployment credit. The kind Olivia would jump at to pad her record before her next PR tour. My stomach didn't move, but I already knew. Any live feed? I asked. Partial drone recon. UAV-16 was rerouted and caught thermal signatures off the coast about 10 minutes ago. Small craft approaching, not flagged. Pirates, or worse, the pattern fit. Same MO from 3 months ago. Small fast boats. Flash and dump weapons. Get in, grab a hostage, and disappear before command knows what happened. Alert CENTCOM liaison, I said. Request standby QRF from forward base Dakar. Keep it cold, no movement until I confirm. I walked to the center table and pulled up the encrypted mission overlay. Coordinates, movement trends, and terrain data are all lined up. It wasn't random. Who routed the Clearwell through this sector, I asked. Logistics Command approved it, Mason replied. Came through Admiral Collins' desk. Of course it did. Collins loved predictable paths. Standard shipping corridors made his reports look efficient. Never mind that enemies can read maps, too. Pull 2 alternate exfiltration plans and prep for NavCom override, I said. Mason didn't ask why. He knew what I was doing. Inside the tank, no one raises their voice. There's no yelling, no hero speeches. There's just competence. We issued the drone countersweep at 0722. By 0736, 2 boats had closed within 400 meters of the Clearwell. Weapons visible, I gave 2 orders. First, override the vessel's internal comms and broadcast a distress scramble on repeat in all directions. Enough noise to make any nearby NATO sub or Allied patrol tune in. Second, initiate soft deployment of our closest hunter UAV with live visual feed and heat map. The UAV kicked on. High altitude, no sound, no warning. I watched the feed come alive. 2 crafts, 5 men per boat, all masked. One is holding what looks like an RPG but is shaky. Amateurs or desperate, maybe both. I flagged it for shared access and pinged our legal officer. Are we clear for non-lethal defensive engagement if contact escalates? I asked. Under Rules of Engagement 7, yes. Logged? Logged. Push alert to Dakar. Send SEAL detachment to intercept. Extraction only. No forward assault unless fired on. Everything after that moved fast. 10 minutes later, the enemy boats broke the pattern and turned back. Our drone hovered quietly overhead. The Clearwell reconnected fully, and the status was confirmed. All personnel accounted for. Minor injuries, no fatalities. They didn't know we were watching. They didn't know they'd just been seconds from being taken. Mason came over again. Recovery team is inbound. Should make contact within 40. I nodded. He hesitated. Manifest list just uploaded. I scanned it. Olivia Sandler. Public Affairs. Assigned 3 weeks ago. No flags. I didn't say anything. Just stared at the screen. Sometimes the people you keep alive will never know they almost died. Sometimes they'll never ask who pulled the strings to make that happen. And sometimes they'll thank the wrong person on national television. That's fine. There's a saying in intelligence, if you want credit, you're in the wrong job. At 0810, I logged the full after-action report, encrypted it, and archived the mission folder. I didn't tell anyone to notify the family. The room was already clearing. Mason gave me a nod. I gave him one back. I picked up my coffee on the way out. Cold, didn't matter. I arrived at dinner exactly 2 minutes late, just enough to avoid small talk. Mom answered the door with a cloth napkin still in her hand. "Oh good, you made it," she said, like I'd RSVP'd from another continent. The smell of roast chicken and fresh bread hit me like a childhood rerun. Dad stood at the far end of the dining room, next to the carved oak sideboard. His jaw locked in place, like he was waiting for someone to report. When he saw it was me, he relaxed half a muscle. Olivia was already seated. Her hair was pulled into one of those effortless military buns that looked good on camera. Her nameplate from the ceremony earlier was sitting next to her salad, like it had been invited to. "Grace," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Glad you could come." I took the empty seat across from her, the one they always left in case someone from Dad's old unit dropped by. Nobody ever did. Dinner started like a well-rehearsed mission brief. Everyone said, "Pass the butter," and "This is lovely, Lorraine," like it was part of the script. I said nothing. No one seemed to notice. Dad raised a glass midway through the salad course. "To Olivia," he said. "My daughter, a fine officer, sharp, dependable, the kind of leader any command would be proud to have." He didn't look at me when he said, "My daughter." He looked at Olivia. She smiled and touched his arm. "Thanks, Dad. That means a lot." Mom dabbed at her eyes with a cloth napkin, like this was the closing scene in a Hallmark movie. "I mean," Dad added, "not everyone gets called up to stand in front of the base like that. It's not about rank. It's about presence." I bit down on a piece of bread hard enough to feel the crust fight back. Mom chimed in. "Grace, are you still at... What is it again? That office near Arlington?" I nodded. "Still there. Must be nice to have consistent hours," she said. Olivia laughed softly. "Unless she's off doing top secret stuff and can't tell us," I smiled. "Wouldn't want to bore you with spreadsheets." Nobody laughed. The roast came out next. Mom made a show of placing it in front of Dad like he'd won a medal. He carved with surgical precision, years of muscle memory from surgery and command. Between bites, Olivia launched into a story about the ship, how rough the waves were, how close they'd come to rerouting. "I mean, if the drone hadn't picked up the boat in time, it could have been bad," she said, shaking her head like someone who'd survived a near-car accident, not a hijacking. "Crazy," Dad said. "You were in real danger?" "A little," Olivia admitted. "But the Navy handled it. Some admiral somewhere pressed the right button, I guess." I sipped my water. No one asked what I'd done that week. No one connected the math, the number of people on the ship, the location, the timing. They never did. At some point, Mom asked if I'd thought about dating again. "There's a nice major in the finance unit," she said. "He's Catholic and not on social media." "I'll keep that in mind," I said. I finished my plate. Olivia was still mid-story about a video interview she gave last month that went semi-viral on the Navy's internal platform. She used words like brand alignment and narrative cohesion. Dad ate it up. That's what we need more of. Officers who know how to speak for the service, not just push papers. I stared at the centerpiece. A fake candle flickered next to a small framed photo of Olivia in uniform. It hadn't been there at the last dinner. Funny, I'd been in uniform too, but the walls never seemed to notice. When dessert came, I declined. I had a long drive and no desire to sit through a recap of Olivia's interview analytics. I stood, thanked Mom, nodded to Dad, and offered a quiet good night to Olivia. As I stepped out into the cool night, my phone buzzed. A new message, unmarked sender. A simple line of text, "Files clear for release, standby." I looked at the sky. No stars tonight, just clouds, clean and blank. I didn't go home. I drove straight to the base. The gate guards didn't ask questions. One look at my ID, and they waved me through like the car knew where to go. It did. My badge lit green to sub-level 3, then orange before the last door. Clearance pending. I waited 10 seconds. The light blinked once. Then it turned blue. Inside, the lights buzzed low. The room held 5 screens, 1 chair, and nothing soft. The file was already loaded. Code. Argus 9S. Subject, Operation Deep Tether, Somalia Coastline. Logistics Intercept and Personnel Recovery. I sat. I read. I already knew what it said. But seeing it on record, that hit differently. Timeline, drone footage, tactical orders, audio logs, redacted details. My voice was transcribed. Initiate recovery under Black Flag Protocol. Engagement clearance level 7. Do not confirm ID to manifest. Protect source chain. All of it. Mine, and now, no longer hidden. The screen blinked again. Additional clearance was granted. The public commendation package is in development. Pending approval. Suggested release. Joint Forces Recognition Summit, Baltimore. 8 days. 8 days. I leaned back in the chair. The room was colder than before. Rear Admiral Michael Greaves stepped in without knocking. His stars caught the edge of the monitor light. "Grace," he said, nodding like we'd just passed in the hallway instead of in the middle of a classified bunker. "Sir," I replied. He walked over, hands behind his back. Classic posture. But there was weight behind his silence, not performance, pressure. "We've been sitting on this too long," he said. "It was clean, effective. Nobody died. That counts for more than you think these days." I didn't answer. He glanced at the monitor. "You already read the release notice. Just now." He nodded again. "We're recommending you for public recognition. Full strategic commendation, cross-branch endorsement." I turned in the chair. "Why now?" He didn't blink. "Because this time, the politics favor visibility." There it was, not because the world needed to know, but because it was finally valuable for someone if they did. He looked at me differently then, not like a subordinate, not like a case file, more like a tool with optional settings. He didn't need my permission, just my presence. "You don't have to do the speech," he said. "Just show up. Let them read your name and clap. I don't need applause. You do need a seat at the table." I let that sit. The table. The phrase echoed harder than he realized. Greaves reached into his coat and handed me a small envelope. Inside was a physical invitation, black and gold cardstock with embossed lettering. United Joint Recognition, Summit Baltimore, Maryland Award Presentation, Rear Admiral Grace Sandler Official, Public. Irrevocable once confirmed. We're not asking you to perform, Grace. We're asking you to be seen. I set the envelope down. What does Olivia know? She knows nothing. No one's looped her in. Your name hasn't hit the interbranch wire yet. Keep it that way, I said, until I decide. Greaves gave me a sharp nod. You've earned the choice, but don't wait too long. The machine doesn't like silence unless it owns it. He left. The door clicked behind him. I sat there another 30 minutes. No movement, no clock. Just my breathing and the hum of servers behind the wall. Visibility. It's funny how that word changes depending on who's using it. Some people spend their careers chasing the spotlight. Others spend it trying to operate just outside of it. I wasn't allergic to being seen. I just didn't believe most people deserved to look. The file sat open in front of me, my signature on every order. My name is on every redaction removal request. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then I stood, walked out, and left the envelope behind. Still sealed. I drove until the gaslight came on. Didn't matter where. I passed the base, the city, a string of diners with too many vowels in their names. At some point, I pulled over in an empty parking lot behind a tire shop and killed the engine. It was quiet. I sat there with the stillness you only get when no one's watching. No uniform, no command. Just an officer off duty and off balance. The envelope was still in my bag. Untouched. I didn't take it out. Recognition, commendation, public visibility, all dressed up like a reward but just repackaged attention. And attention always came with expectation. I wasn't afraid of being seen. I was tired of being framed. They wanted to put me on a stage, say my name like they'd known it all along, shake my hand like they'd stood beside me in the tank, smile for the cameras, like they understood what it meant to watch 22 people survive because of the quiet orders you gave under pressure no one saw. What they didn't get, what nobody got, was that silence wasn't the absence of a story. It was its kind of defiance. I thought about Dad. What he'd say if he saw my name on that screen. Probably nothing. He'd squint, shift in his seat, say something like, "Well, I guess they had to pick someone." Then he'd go back to talking about Olivia's posture or her latest article on troop morale. I thought about Olivia. What would she feel if she learned who coordinated the drone that saved her ship? Not pride, not gratitude, probably resentment. Because in our family, being saved by me would feel like losing. I stared out at the empty road. A delivery truck passed. No headlights, no music, just the hum of forward motion. The world keeps turning, whether you're decorated or not. Back at home, I didn't go to bed. I pulled out an old folder from the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside, my service record. A file no one in my family had ever asked to read. I flipped through deployments, commendations, and letters of recognition stamped with dates no one ever celebrated. Then I found it. A photo, black and white. I'm in Bahrain. Uniform soaked from heat. No makeup, no smile. Just eyes that looked like they'd been awake for 2 days. Because they had. I pinned it to the bulletin board above my desk, next to the invitation. Then I opened my notebook. No screens, no email, just pen on paper. I wrote 2 words, stand still. Not for the world, not for the press, for myself. Stand still long enough to know if this moment is about revenge or something more profound. Then I wrote 2 more. Say yes, not for them, not to prove anything, but because sometimes truth belongs in the light. Not for applause, but for the record. At 0600, I faxed a single-page confirmation to the Joint Forces Committee. 7 lines, signature at the bottom. Rear Admiral Grace Sandler will attend the United Joint Recognition Summit. Full clearance granted. Remarks optional. Presence confirmed. I arrived early enough to watch them set up the flags. They ironed every fold on the stage drapes, like it would appear on a satellite. The screen above the podium cycled through military logos and quotes about sacrifice. Everything smelled like fresh carpet and veteran sweat. Name badges were stacked at the check-in table. Mine was flipped upside down. Her eyebrows jumped slightly when the attendant handed it over and I saw what it said. "Admiral," she said quickly, adjusting the lanyard. "Welcome." I gave a nod and walked in. The auditorium seated 500. Uniforms everywhere. Green, white, blue, brass polished, ribbons heavy. The front row held generals, admirals, and a few politicians trying to look like they belonged. The middle rows were a mix of command teams and families. I found my assigned seat in row 3. Center. Clean view of the podium, not too close to the press pit. Just close enough to hear everything, not necessary enough to lead the standing ovation. Perfect. I sat. Back straight, hands folded, expression neutral. 10 minutes later, Olivia walked in with our parents. She didn't see me right away. Or maybe she did and decided not to. Either way, she smiled for someone else's camera and took her place up front. Same sharp uniform, same flawless composure. Mom wore pearls. Dad had on his old academy pin. I watched them talk to a colonel 2 seats over. Dad leaned in, animated. He's probably talking about his daughter, the officer who tells stories that matter. They didn't look my way. The lights dimmed. An assistant stepped up and introduced the event. Then came a string of tributes, all predictable. Honor, service, sacrifice, brotherhood. Speeches are built like IKEA furniture, easy to assemble, hollow in the middle. Then came General Greaves. He didn't bring notes. He didn't need them. He walked to the podium and looked around the room like he was searching for a mistake. When people talk about leadership, he began. They usually mean the person in front. The loud one, the decorated one, the one who gives the speech. But real leadership often sits in the shadows, pulling strings the rest of us depend on. He paused. 6 months ago, A vessel carrying 22 U.S. service members was intercepted off the coast of Somalia. Most of you never heard about it. That's because the people in charge did their job. The room shifted. Attention sharpened. He continued. Today, we recognize one of those people. A woman whose decisions saved every single life on that vessel. Who declined credit. Who stayed silent. Until now. He turned slightly. Rear Admiral Grace Sandler, please stand. My seat creaked as I got up. A silence dropped that wasn't awkward, it was stunned. I heard someone 2 rows up whisper, "Wait, her?" Greaves waited. Then he started the slow clap. The room joined in. People stood, rows at a time. Uniforms straightening, shoulders squaring, palms clapping. It rolled through like a controlled wave. Everyone stood except 3. Mom, Dad, Olivia. They didn't move. They looked at me like they were watching something they didn't understand. Olivia's lips parted slightly, but she didn't say a word. I didn't look away. I walked to the stage. No speech, just a nod. Greaves handed me a plaque, metal, heavy, engraved. Sometimes silence is the highest form of command, he said. I nodded again, then stepped off the stage, not rushed, not dramatic. Just enough for them to see it wasn't for show. As I passed my family's row, Mom blinked quickly. Dad's hands were in fists. Olivia didn't move. Her eyes followed me, but she didn't blink. I retook my seat. The ceremony moved on. Other names, other medals, more clapping. But the air had shifted. Not because I stood up, but because now they knew I'd always been standing. I reached the back exit before I heard my father's voice behind me. Grace, I didn't stop. Just slowed enough for him to catch up, like I was being polite at a crosswalk. He stepped in front of me, still in his pressed blazer. Still standing like he owned every room. What the hell was that? He said low. You'll have to narrow it down, I said. That performance, that spectacle. Pretty sure I didn't say a word. He clenched his jaw. You planned this. You knew they'd announce you. You knew we'd be here. Yes, I said flatly. He looked stunned for half a second, like he couldn't decide whether to be angry or impressed. Why now? He asked. After all this time, why make it about you? I raised an eyebrow. About me? You hijacked your sister's moment. That one almost made me laugh. She had a full ceremony, a speech, 3 photo ops, and Mom's pearl earrings. I stood up when they said my name. You knew it would pull focus. I didn't know it would make you so uncomfortable. He shifted, stepping half a pace closer. We supported both of you, but Olivia was the one you could talk about at parties. I get it. That's not fair. No, I said, it's accurate. Behind him, I saw Olivia and Mom catching up. Olivia looked sharp and polished, but her pace had slowed. Mom looked like she was holding her breath. They reached us just as Dad tried again. We always wanted the best for you, he said. No, I said, turning to face all 3. You wanted the version of me that didn't make you nervous, the one who stayed quiet, smiled politely, and didn't threaten anyone's spotlight. Olivia crossed her arms. You didn't exactly make it easy. I looked at her. You mean I didn't play along? You don't share. You don't let anyone in. I don't pretend. That's different. She scoffed. You really think this was some grand injustice? That we were all out to hold you down? I think, I said, voice even, that for years, I watched you get celebrated for showing up while I got sidelined for staying quiet. No one asked you to stay quiet. I turned to Mom. She flinched a little when I met her eyes. That's the point, I said. No one asked. No one noticed. No one thought to. Olivia folded her arms tighter. You could have told us about the mission, about the ceremony. Why? So you could say, wow, Grace, we had no idea, and go right back to treating me like a technical support line? You're twisting this, Dad said. You're making it into some narrative. I'm not making anything. I'm stating facts. Silence. Heavy, loaded silence. Mom finally stepped forward. We didn't know how to relate to you, she said softly. You always seem so distant. I was quiet, I corrected. That's not the same, Olivia's voice cut in. You think you're the only one who ever felt overlooked? Try being compared to you my entire life. That landed. Not clean, but sharp. I never asked for that, I said. No, she said, quieter now. You just never needed it. You walked into every room like nothing could touch you. You didn't need approval. I did. I still do. I didn't answer right away. For once, I didn't know if I was feeling anger or something adjacent to sadness. I didn't want to make this about me, I said finally. But I also wasn't going to sit in the corner while you toasted each other and ignored the fact that I was the one who saved you. Olivia blinked. Mom looked down. Dad exhaled hard through his nose. You could have handled this better. I stared at him, then said, calm as ever. So could you. I turned and started walking. None of them stopped me. No yelling, no guilt trip, no sudden reversal. Just footsteps behind me that never got closer. The first sign something had shifted was how people paused before saying my name. At the base, it was subtle. Officers who used to breeze past now stopped and nodded. Staff who once emailed with clipped phrases added ma'am or Admiral Sandler with an extra line break. Nobody said anything directly, but the room carried weight differently now. The Pentagon's internal bulletin picked it up first. Then came the Joint Command newsletter. Then one of the mid-tier military blogs, run by some veteran with a podcast, wrote, Rear Admiral Grace Sandler quietly reshapes strategic command. Quietly, right. My inbox tripled in 48 hours. Congratulations, inquiries, speaking invites, LinkedIn requests from people I hadn't heard from since ROTC. One colonel I barely remembered from logistics training in Bahrain messaged, always knew you had it in you. I didn't respond. At the commissary, 2 junior sailors whispered when I passed. One of them looked like he wanted to ask for a photo. I kept walking. Olivia didn't call, but I knew she'd seen it. Her unit posted a congratulations banner on their intranet. They included both our names. She shared it on her profile. No caption, no tag. Mom emailed a screenshot of a letter they got from a Navy veterans group. They want to send you a flag, she wrote. I can forward the address if you want. I didn't reply. At 700 on Friday, I got the transfer orders. Effective immediately. Reassigned to Joint Strategic Operations Advisory Board. New office, new staff. Direct reporting line to Vice Admiral Weston. No ceremony, no handoff. Just a quiet welcome aboard and a high clearance badge with new access levels. My new workspace overlooked the river, clean glass, no blinds. I could see everything, the commuter trains, the freeway, even the sprawl of Arlington rooftops in the distance. I unpacked a single file folder, 1 pen and a photo. Not the one from my parents' living room, the one from Bahrain, wet uniform, tired eyes. Real. The staff learned fast, no chatter, no dramatics. Do the work, speak clearly, and don't waste my time. Some tried small talk. Most learned better. By the end of week 1, the briefing team had reshaped 3 war game simulations based on the Somalia intercept protocol I'd written. Nobody challenged it. Visibility wasn't a light. It was leverage. Back home, the house stayed quiet. My phone rang once. Dad. I let it ring. No voicemail. Instead, I got a forwarded email from Olivia. A chain message. Somebody in her unit is asking, "Is that your sister from the ceremony?" She'd replied, "Yes, that's my sister. No more. No emoji. No fake praise." But she didn't deny it. In this family, that counted for something. That weekend, I didn't go anywhere. I made coffee, cleaned the house, and fixed the loose cabinet hinge I'd ignored for months. Normal things. Things nobody claps for. I stood in the hallway, looking at my shelf. No trophies, no plaques, just books, a folded flag, and a thick file stamped classified, now cleared. I placed it dead center, let it sit. Not to show off, not to prove anything, just to remind myself that I had been there. I had made the call. And no one, not even silence, could take that away. 6 months later, I parked in the same driveway I once left without looking back. The hydrangeas out front had grown wild, like no one dared trim them without official orders. The porch light was already on. Someone must have seen the headlights. Or maybe it had stayed on all year, just in case regret ever showed up in uniform. I didn't ring the doorbell. Mom opened the door before I knocked. She wore a soft sweater and held a dish rag in one hand like she was caught mid-normal. Her eyes flicked to the uniform I wasn't wearing. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. I nodded. "Hi." She stepped aside. No hug. No awkward excuse. Just room. Inside, everything looked like a museum of the version of our family they wanted to believe in. The same hallway rug. Same framed portraits. Only this time, something had changed. The display cabinet. It used to be Olivia's kingdom. Her commissioning photo. Her boot camp certificate. A plaque from when she gave a presentation at a media symposium. On the far left, Dad's Academy memorabilia. And in the middle, what used to be a space or a flower arrangement, now held a black and silver frame. My photo. Not the one from the ceremony. The other one is me receiving the citation from Greaves. Hand extended, eyes forward. The mission insignia and a folded briefing sheet were flanked in a glass case. Dead center. I didn't say anything, just stood there. Mom noticed. "Your father did that," she said. I turned to her. She didn't smile, didn't offer a speech. She wiped her hands on the dish towel and said, "It was time." Dad appeared from the hallway like he hadn't been eavesdropping, which meant he had. He wore a polo shirt tucked in too tightly and looked like he hadn't quite decided what facial expression fit this moment. "Grace," he said. I nodded. "Sir." We stood there in that strange military-civilian pause, where nobody quite knows who's outranking who. He finally cleared his throat. "You want some coffee?" "Sure." We sat in the kitchen. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and reheated respect. He poured coffee like he always had. Too full, no eye contact. "We've been following the stories," he said. I sipped. "They got most of the details wrong." He almost smiled. "Still, it's making the rounds." I nodded. "Doesn't matter much anymore." He looked at me then for real. It was not like he was checking for weakness or running an evaluation, just looking. "You did good," he said. Quiet. Like the words cost him something. I didn't flinch. "I know." We drank in silence for a while. The door creaked. Olivia stood there in the doorway, coat still on, boots half-laced. She looked winded, like she'd jogged from the car in case I left early. "Hey," she said. "Hey." Her eyes flicked to the living room, the cabinet, and the mug in my hand. "You came." "Didn't think I'd need an invitation," she nodded slowly. "Didn't think you'd want one." Neither of us moved. Dad stood. "I'll get another mug." Mom started rinsing dishes she'd already cleaned. I stood up and walked into the hallway. Olivia followed. We stood in front of the display case, both looking straight ahead. "They centered it," she said, as it surprised her too. "Yeah," she shifted her weight. "Guess that makes you the middle child now." I exhaled one sharp breath through my nose. "Doesn't bother you?" she asked. "Not anymore," she nodded. "It used to bother me, that you didn't seem to need it. Any of this." "I did," I said. "I just learned not to expect it." She looked down, then back up. "It looks right. You there?" I didn't answer, because it did. That night, Mom cooked just for the two of us. No one said it was a dinner, no calendar invite, no text. I just walked into the kitchen and found her pulling the roast chicken out of the oven like it was 1999, and I still lived down the hall. The table was already set. 2 plates, cloth napkins. A small candle flickering, like she didn't want the overhead light too sharp for the conversation she was avoiding. She didn't look up when I sat. "Your favorite," she said, more to the countertop than to me. "I don't think I ever had a favorite," I replied. She paused. "You used to eat it without complaint. That's not the same." She exhaled slowly and brought over the salad. We ate in mostly silence. Forks on ceramic, ice shifting in water glasses, a ticking wall clock that felt louder than necessary. Halfway through the meal, she finally spoke. "I didn't know how to raise you." I looked up. "You weren't difficult," she added quickly. "You were different." I kept my face neutral, let her keep going. "You didn't ask for things, you didn't cry, you didn't need constant praise." I mistook that for strength. Maybe it was, but it also made it easy to ignore. I nodded, not as forgiveness, just acknowledgement. She set her fork down. "Olivia needed us to see her. You needed space. We gave her too much and you not enough." "I didn't want space," I said. I adapted to it. That stopped her. She folded her napkin, then unfolded it again. "I don't know how to fix that." "You don't," I said. "But you can stop acting like I'm fragile just because I didn't break." She met my eyes. For once, nothing soft or sentimental. Just recognition. "You're not fragile," she said. "You're sharp." And I was afraid of sharp things. That landed. We finished the meal. She poured 2 glasses of wine without asking. Something white, probably too sweet. But it felt like a habit from a life we never fully shared. She raised her glass. To things we didn't say, and the fact we're saying some of them now. I didn't toast back, just took a sip. "I don't want pity," I said, "or late-stage admiration." "You'll get neither," she said. "I'm too old for performative guilt." That almost made me smile. We sat for a while longer. No big speeches, no sudden hugs, just 2 women in a kitchen that used to mean something different. As I stood to clear my plate, she reached out, not to stop me or dramatize, but lightly touched my hand. "I see you," she said. "Not just your uniform, you." I didn't answer, didn't need to. Sometimes silence meant understanding. Sometimes it meant boundaries. And sometimes, just sometimes, it meant we'd both finally grown into something neither of us had words for. I stepped out back, where the bridge behind the house still creaked like it remembered everything. The wood was worn smooth in the middle, still damp from the sprinkler system that never worked right. It stretched over the narrow creek that cut behind our yard, a place we used to sit as kids when we didn't want to talk, just pass notes or throw rocks at nothing. I leaned on the rail. It didn't wobble. Footsteps behind me. I didn't turn, just waited. Olivia came up beside me without a word. She rested her elbows on the railing, the same posture we both learned before we could spell resentment. For a while, we just stood there. Nothing but wind and frogs and some distant dog barking like it had an opinion. "You ever think we'd end up back here?" she asked finally. "I thought you'd end up somewhere louder," she smirked. "Still might. More silence. But it's less sharp now, just space." "I used to hate this bridge," she said. "Felt like a timeout zone." "It was." She nodded. "Mom sent us here when we fought. Dad pretended we were working it out. I mostly just stared at the water." "Same." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small paper cup. "Gas station coffee." She took a sip and made a face. "They should court-martial whoever made this." I raised an eyebrow. "Still buying gas station coffee?" "Still lying to myself that it's convenient." She took another sip anyway. Then, "I read the full debrief last week." I didn't respond. "The Somalia op," she clarified. "Back-channeled it from a guy in Central Command, still quiet. You were 4 minutes away from calling in an airstrike." 3 minutes and 42 seconds, I corrected. She glanced over. "You remember it that exact?" "You don't forget moments like that." She looked down at the water. I kept thinking, if I had died on that ship and never known who pulled the string, would it have mattered? "It would have mattered to me," she exhaled. "That's the thing. You've always cared quietly." I never knew what to do with that. I looked at her. "You didn't have to do anything." "Well, I did. I competed with it, resented it. You always seemed like the adult, even when we were kids. I felt like the decoration." I studied her face, calm but not performative. "I didn't mean to cast a shadow." "You didn't." I just didn't know how to stand next to you without measuring everything. We stood in that for a while. No apology, no resolution, just two women finally out of excuses. I didn't clap, she said suddenly. At the ceremony, she nodded. Not at first. I froze. I noticed. She straightened up. It wasn't because I wasn't proud. I was just stunned. You were always a ghost in our family. Then you stepped into the spotlight like it was owed. And I realized, maybe it was. I didn't answer. She tapped her cup lightly on the railing. You still keep everything inside? I glanced over. I let out just enough. She smiled. Yeah, you do. A breeze cut through, cold but clean. She took a step back, then turned toward me. If you ever do something like that again, save 22 people, shake a 4-star's hand, get your name etched into history, can you give me a heads up? Why? I asked. So I can stand next to you on purpose this time. I didn't nod, didn't smile, just stood there. She dropped the empty cup in the trash bin near the porch, then paused before walking inside. I'm not perfect, she said, still figuring out how to be someone you'd call your sister. You don't need to figure it out, I said. Just stop treating me like I need to be managed. She opened the screen door. Deal? The door creaked shut behind her. I stayed on the bridge a little longer. The creak kept moving beneath me, quiet, constant, never asking for applause. He didn't ask if I wanted coffee. He just poured it, like I'd finally earned it. The kitchen smelled like Sunday mornings from before everyone started pretending. Bacon crisping, toast is slightly overdone. Someone had brought in fancy bagels with poppy seeds and guilt. We sat around the table, 6 chairs, 5 people. One tension you could slice and rank for clearance. Olivia was in workout gear. Mom wore pearls again as if the moment might require formality. Dad read the paper but didn't flip the pages. No one spoke until forks hit plates. Then he set the paper down. Grace, he said, like he'd practiced it in his head 3 times before committing. I looked up. In a hypothetical combat drop, with 3 logistical entry points, 2 coastal, 1 inland. Enemy radar active. Which route do you choose? I didn't blink. Coastal, west. Use the radar signature as bait. Delay main force by 6. Send drones first. He nodded. Not performative, not dismissive. Just nod. Interesting, he said. Mom sipped her coffee. Olivia didn't even look up, but she smiled, barely. I broke a piece of bagel. It's standard doctrine. It's solid thinking, he said. Wasn't fishing. You never fish, I said. No, he agreed. I just misjudge sometimes. That was new. The conversation moved on. Light, clumsy, but honest. Olivia told a story about a base dog stealing someone's boots. Mom offered updates on a neighbor I didn't remember. Dad mentioned a new transfer coming to his old unit. No tension, no correction. Just people eating eggs and breathing. At one point, Dad asked for the salt. I passed it. No one watched to see if I'd flinch, and I didn't. Later, as we cleared the table, he helped carry plates to the sink. That never happened when we were kids. The man had believed in strict divisions. Officers don't do dishes. But there he was, rinsing a skillet like it had never been beneath him. He glanced at me. You know, I read the Somalia report, the full one, not the scrubbed version. Classified access. Friends in dusty offices. And? You didn't flinch there either. I didn't have time to. He nodded again, then paused. I wouldn't have made the same call, not in that window. You would have waited. I would have hesitated, which means people would have died. He rinsed the pan one last time, then set it aside. You did good, Grace. You already said that. This time I mean it as your father, not just someone in uniform. That was the closest I'd ever got to closure from him. I didn't press it, didn't need to. Across the kitchen, Olivia was packing up leftover bagels. Mom was humming something under her breath. I stood there, still holding a wet plate, and felt something shift. Not loudly, not suddenly, but permanently. Not power, not revenge. Just weight redistributed, balance reset. He dried his hands and handed me a dish towel. No salute, no speech. Just a man looking at his daughter like she was finally in the correct uniform, even out of uniform. This time, I wasn't introduced as support staff. I walked on stage as the architect. The Strategic Command Summit wasn't known for drama. Beige walls, beige uniforms, beige expectations. But this year, they gave me the slot before the defense secretary. They expected me to say something clever, short, and politically safe. Too bad. I stood behind the podium, lights sharp on my collar. Microphones blinked. Every seat was filled. 4-star generals, civilian analysts, NATO observers. A few journalists are in stiff suits, hoping for controversy. Third row, stage right, I spotted Olivia. She looked proud. I adjusted the mic. I'm Rear Admiral Grace Sandler. Some of you know me from Task Force Orion. Some of you know me from the operation you weren't cleared to know about until 6 weeks ago. And some of you, let's be honest, had no idea who I was until a man in a nicer uniform has said my name on a stage. Polite laughter. One general coughed to cover a grin. I continued. There's been a lot of talk lately about visibility, about leadership, about who gets credit. I won't waste your time with speeches about equality or representation. Not because they're unimportant, because I've lived through them. I let that hang for half a second. I'm not here today because I rose through the perfect channels. I'm not here because I played nice, smiled at the right receptions, or agreed to chair a committee on morale. I'm here because when the call came in, I made the decision. And when lives were on the line, I didn't blink. Silence. Heavy. Focused. For years, I operated in rooms where my rank was technically respected and practically ignored. I was labeled logistics, strategy, non-combatant. You know, the safe words for when a woman's making real decisions. That one hit. A few glances were exchanged in the front row. I've never fired a weapon in active combat. I've never kicked down a door, but don't mistake that for weakness. I'm not the person who enters the battlefield. Beat. I'm the one who decides where the battlefield is. Dead quiet now. I took a breath, not because I needed one, because they did. For those of you still wondering what visibility really looks like, it looks like this. It looks like a woman who didn't wait to be applauded before doing the work. It looks like being the last one blamed and the first one blamed, depending on the result. I scanned the room. Nobody fidgeted, not even the aides. I'm not asking for validation. I'm not here to inspire your daughters or soften your policies. I'm here to remind you that leadership doesn't need permission. It just needs results. Pause. That's why I'm here. Not because of gender or politics or visibility initiatives. I'm here because I won a war you didn't even know was happening, because it was my job to make sure you didn't have to. I looked toward Olivia. She didn't clap yet. Good. I leaned forward slightly, tone steady. I used to believe that if I worked hard enough, someone would eventually notice. But I've learned something more useful. You don't need the spotlight to do your job. You just need to be damn good at it. I stepped back from the mic. Half a breath. And then the applause came. Not polite, not delayed. Full, controlled. Earned. In the third row, Olivia stood first. She didn't wave. She didn't cheer. She just clapped. Hands sharp, spine straight. One by one, the others followed. No standing ovation cliché. Just recognition. Professional, unavoidable. As I walked off stage, a junior officer passed me in the wings. "Ma'am," he said, "I didn't know who you were before today." I stopped. "Most don't." "Well," he said, "they do now." I nodded once. Then I walked straight through the hallway, lined with flags toward the exit. Toward air that didn't need to be saluted to feel earned. I didn't stay for the handshakes. I never liked receptions. People talk too much after they've said nothing for years. Outside, the air felt normal, unimpressed, honest. I pulled off the ribboned name badge, folded it once, and dropped it in my coat pocket. No need to wear something people finally learned to say out loud. On the curb, my car was waiting. Engine off, no escort, no ceremony, just me. No one needs to know you were there. And if the mark you left had never needed your name in the first place, if stories like this hit close to home, quiet revenge, complicated families, the kind of drama that doesn't scream but still scars, subscribe. We tell them exactly how they happen. Sharp, slow burning, and real.